think is central to their sense of power. When a person consistently refuses to bow to that need, the narcissist experiences an internal frustration unlike anything else. This frustration triggers a fixation, a mental loop where the narcissist becomes obsessed with figuring out how to regain control or win over someone who won't comply. It's not personal in the way you might think, it's strategic. They obsess over the person who threatens the illusion that they are untouchable, that everyone bends to their will. And the obsession often grows silently, sometimes long after the person has walked away. The narcissist may appear to move on, but in reality, the mind continues to replay scenarios of influence, manipulation, and imagined victories. Interestingly, the more the person maintains boundaries, asserts independence, and demonstrates self-worth, the deeper the narcissist's fixation can become. They see these traits as a puzzle they must solve, almost like a challenge they cannot afford to ignore. In essence, the obsession is not about affection or attachment. It's about control, dominance, and the inability to tolerate resistance. This is why certain people become unforgettable in a narcissist's mind, not because of who they are emotionally, but because of what they refuse to surrender psychologically. The people who stop reacting emotionally often become unforgettable to a narcissist. Narcissists thrive on emotional responses, the anger, the frustration, the desperation, even the affection, because these reactions validate their sense of power. When someone reacts predictably, whether it's fear, guilt, or pleading, the narcissist feels in control and can move on without much thought. But the moment someone refuses to play that role, refuses to give them the emotional fuel they crave, the dynamic shifts completely. Silence, calmness, or indifference is the kryptonite for a narcissist. It disrupts the carefully constructed game of control and provokes intense curiosity and obsession. When a person stops reacting, the narcissist is forced to reckon with something they cannot easily manage: uncertainty. They are accustomed to bending reality and manipulating others to fit their narrative, but an emotionally steady person resists those attempts. That resistance ignites a psychological itch in the narcissist, a fixation that makes them think constantly about the person, trying to understand why their usual tactics no longer work. The obsession isn't about love or respect, it's about regaining the familiar sense of dominance that they lost. The more emotionally unavailable a person becomes, the more the narcissist's mind latches onto them. Every unreturned text, every calm refusal to argue, every boundary silently enforced becomes a mystery to be solved. In their eyes, it's a puzzle, a challenge, a fight that must continue in their imagination, even if it cannot in reality. And this is why those who stop reacting emotionally become unforgettable. They represent a loss of control the narcissist cannot tolerate and cannot let go of mentally. They become lodged in the narcissist's mind precisely because they refuse to provide the very thing the narcissist depends on: reactive validation. Boundaries create obsession because narcissists see them as a direct threat to their control. Narcissists are used to people being pliable, accommodating, and predictable. When someone sets a clear boundary, saying no, refusing a request, or insisting on personal space, it challenges the narcissist's sense of authority and superiority. They are not used to encountering resistance, and the very act of being denied ignites a mix of confusion, frustration, and fascination. The person setting the boundary becomes a mental puzzle they cannot ignore. A boundary, no matter how small, signals to the narcissist that their usual tactics will not work. They cannot coerce, guilt, or manipulate this person as easily as they do others. This resistance is unfamiliar and deeply unsettling to them. The stronger and more consistent the boundaries, the more the narcissist's mind latches onto the person, trying to figure out how to bypass or break them. It is important to understand that this obsession isn't about admiration or genuine care. It is purely about the narcissist's need to restore their sense of control. Over time, the more someone maintains firm boundaries, the more unforgettable they become in the narcissist's mind. Every act of self-respect, every refusal to be manipulated, every insistence on personal limits is recorded in their mental ledger as a challenge yet to be conquered. This is why people who assert themselves calmly and consistently can evoke a level of fixation far beyond someone who is reactive or easily influenced. The narcissist becomes consumed with the question, how do I get them to bend? In essence, boundaries are like magnets for narcissistic obsession. They are proof that the person cannot be fully dominated, and that very proof becomes the source of the narcissist's unrelenting focus. By standing firm, a person not only protects themselves, but also becomes psychologically unforgettable. A person the narcissist cannot dismiss, ignore, or forget. Independence and self-worth trigger a narcissist's fixation because these qualities represent everything they cannot control or diminish. Narcissists feed on dependency and insecurity. They rely on other people's emotional needs to maintain their sense of superiority. When someone demonstrates confidence, competence, and the ability to function without constant validation, it disrupts the narcissist's typical dynamic. Independence is threatening because it signals that the person is not relying on the narcissist for approval or identity reinforcement. Self-worth, on the other hand, makes it impossible for them to exploit insecurities, manipulate guilt, or enforce the usual cycles of control. The narcissist becomes fascinated with the person precisely because they cannot bend them to their will. The combination of independence and self-respect makes someone psychologically unreachable in the narcissist's eyes. This inability to dominate produces a deep, almost obsessive curiosity. They replay interactions in their mind, analyzing what makes this person impervious to their influence and wondering if there's a way to regain the familiar feeling of control. It's important to recognize that this obsession is not rooted in love, admiration, or desire. It is entirely strategic. The narcissist is preoccupied with restoring the imbalance they cannot tolerate. A person standing firmly outside their sphere of influence. Moreover, independence can evoke envy and insecurity, which intensifies fixation. The narcissist sees qualities they lack or cannot manufacture for themselves, and the very sight of someone thriving autonomously becomes a mental itch they cannot ignore. Every assertive decision, every self-respecting boundary, and every act of personal strength adds to the narcissist's silent, relentless focus. In essence, independence and self-worth are the traits that make someone unforgettable to a narcissist. By living confidently and valuing themselves, a person not only protects their peace, but also occupies a permanent place in the narcissist's mind. Not as a beloved figure, but as an unsolved challenge they cannot stop thinking about. People who walk away without closure often stay in a narcissist's mind the longest. Narcissists crave endings that reinforce their control. An apology, a surrender, or a dramatic reaction that validates their power. When someone leaves calmly, without confrontation or emotional outburst, it denies the narcissist the satisfaction of influence. This lack of closure becomes a psychological thorn they cannot easily remove. Every unanswered question, every silent boundary, and every moment of detachment is replayed in their mind, fueling obsession. Walking away without closure triggers a narcissist because it breaks the expected cycle. Typically, they are used to people seeking reconciliation, reassurance, or explanation after conflict. When someone departs quietly, it challenges their assumptions. They cannot predict, manipulate, or coerce this person into submission. This unpredictability becomes fascinating and irritating at the same time. The narcissist may ruminate endlessly, imagining scenarios, drafting mental conversations, or constructing ways to regain control, even if they never actually act on it. Importantly, the fixation is not about attachment or care, it is about power and the inability to dominate. When someone leaves without providing the expected drama, they create a void the narcissist cannot easily fill. They occupy mental space precisely because they refuse to participate in the narcissist's need for control and validation. Every quiet exit, every refusal to explain or justify oneself is a demonstration of autonomy that the narcissist cannot tolerate. In essence, leaving without closure makes a person unforgettable. They become lodged in the narcissist's psyche not because of love or connection, but because their departure represents a loss the narcissist cannot reconcile. It is a lasting reminder of power they could not reclaim, a challenge that lingers long after the person has moved on. Emotional unavailability removes the narcissist's source of validation, and this is precisely what makes someone unforgettable in their mind. Narcissists feed on attention, admiration, and emotional reactions. These responses act as fuel for their ego. When a person becomes emotionally unavailable, calm, composed, and self-contained, it cuts off the narcissist's primary source of reinforcement. Without reactions to exploit, manipulate, or control, the narcissist feels unsettled and fixates on understanding why their usual tactics no longer work. This absence of emotional access triggers intense curiosity and obsession. Being emotionally unavailable doesn't mean being cold or indifferent. It means maintaining a stable inner world that the narcissist cannot penetrate. It signals that they cannot provoke insecurity, guilt, or fear, tools they rely on to dominate others. The narcissist interprets this unavailability as a challenge, something that must be figured out or conquered. Every unanswered attempt at eliciting a response becomes a mental puzzle, replayed repeatedly in their thoughts. The very act of being unreachable, of not reacting predictably, is what makes the person psychologically magnetic in the narcissist's mind. Over time, this detachment amplifies the fixation. The narcissist becomes preoccupied with scenarios where they might regain access to emotional influence, imagining possibilities, rehearsing conversations, or revisiting past interactions. It is important to remember that the obsession is never about affection or genuine care. It is about control, validation, and the narcissist's discomfort with their inability to manipulate. Ultimately, emotional unavailability transforms a person into someone the narcissist cannot forget. By protecting their inner state and refusing to provide the emotional fuel the narcissist craves, they become a lasting challenge in the narcissist's mind. A presence that lingers not because of love, but because the narcissist cannot reconcile the loss of influence. A narcissist becomes obsessed not with love, but with unfinished control, and this is one of the most overlooked dynamics in their behavior. When a narcissist is unable to fully dominate someone or bend them to their will, it leaves a psychological tension that they cannot easily ignore. Unlike ordinary relationships, which are based on mutual exchange or affection, the narcissist's fixation is driven by power. The unresolved game of control creates a mental loop that keeps the person alive in their thoughts long after direct contact ends. This obsession grows because the narcissist cannot tolerate ambiguity in their power dynamics. They need to feel dominant, admired, or in control, and when someone resists or steps away, it becomes an unsolved problem. Every interaction, memory, or slight challenge is mentally analyzed as the narcissist rehearses strategies to regain influence. Unlike typical grudges or resentments, this fixation is active and ongoing. It persists because the narcissist is unable to achieve closure in the way they define it by ensuring the other person is compliant or subservient. It's also important to understand that this obsession is not a reflection of the person's worth or importance to the narcissist emotionally. The narcissist does not truly care about the individual's happiness or autonomy. Instead, the fixation is entirely about the narcissist's inability to win the dynamic they rely on to feel powerful. The longer the control remains incomplete, the stronger the mental preoccupation becomes. In essence, a narcissist's obsession is a sign of resistance. People who assert themselves, maintain boundaries, and refuse to be manipulated become permanent figures in the narcissist's mind. They are unforgettable not because of affection or attachment, but because the narcissist has unfinished business. A challenge they cannot reconcile, a control they cannot reclaim, and a person who refuses to be owned psychologically. The strongest power over a narcissist is becoming psychologically unavailable, and this is what makes certain people unforgettable in their minds. Narcissists are addicted to influence. They need to know they can manipulate, provoke, or elicit reactions at will. When someone becomes unavailable, not in a hostile or reactive way, but by calmly prioritizing their own boundaries, values, and emotions, it removes the narcissist's ability to dominate. This lack of access creates a tension they cannot ignore, a puzzle that the mind compulsively tries to solve. Psychological unavailability doesn't mean ignoring the narcissist out of spite or holding grudges. It is a deliberate stance of self-possession, protecting one's inner life, emotions, and decisions from being hijacked. Narcissists interpret this as a challenge because it prevents them from doing what they are accustomed to, extracting validation, control, or admiration. Every unanswered message, every calm refusal, and every consistent act of self-priority feeds the narcissist's curiosity and mental fixation. They replay scenarios endlessly, trying to imagine a way to regain influence, even if it is impossible. Interestingly, the more someone maintains this unavailability, the stronger the obsession grows. To a narcissist, this person becomes a permanent figure in their psyche, a symbol of power they cannot reclaim. The fixation is not about love or respect. It is about unresolved dominance, a relentless drive to regain the control that has been denied. In many ways, psychological unavailability transforms the dynamic entirely. It flips the usual script where the narcissist dictates the relationship, placing the person in a position of unshakable strength. Ultimately, by being psychologically unavailable, a person becomes unforgettable. They occupy a lasting place in the narcissist's mind precisely because they refuse to participate in the narcissist's need for control. They are a challenge that lingers, a reminder of autonomy the narcissist cannot take, and a presence that remains long after the relationship has ended.